Kulam, and welcome back to this second part of the study of the section in the book of Zohar called Mi Bara EleH, who created this. Okay, so as always, we're gonna start with an intention. So we're gonna start scanning these letters from right to left, and don't try to make sense of these letters I mentioned before. These are basically names of God that have been filled with other letters of names of God, and this is just to connect us to the light. This is like tuning your radio to the proper station so you can listen properly the station without any static or anything like that. So this is what this is gonna do for you. Okay, so make sure you scan this. I'm gonna give you a few seconds to do that, and then we're gonna do the prayer that we do before we study the Zohar. A prayer from the Ari, to be recited before the study of the Zohar. Ruler of the universe, and Master of masters, the Father of mercy and forgiveness, we thank you, our God, and the God of our forefathers, by bowing down and kneeling, that you brought us closer to your Torah and your holy words, and you enable us to take part in the secrets of your holy Torah. How worthy are we that you grant us with such a big favor, which is the reason we plead before you that you will forgive and acquit all our sins, and that they should not bring separation between you and us. And may be your will before you, our God and the God of our forefathers, that you will awaken and prepare our hearts to love and revere you, and may you listen to our utterances and open our closed hearts to the hidden studies of your Torah. And may our study be pleasant before your place of honor, as the aroma of sweet incense. And may you emanate to us light from the source of our soul, to all of our being. And may the sparks of your holy servants, through which you reveal your wisdom to the world, shine. May their merit and the merit of their fathers and the merit of their Torah and holiness support us, so we shall not stumble through our study. And by their merit enlighten our eyes in our learning, as it is stated by King David, the sweet singer of Israel. Open my eyes, so that I will see wonders from your Torah. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. May the utterances of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, God, my strength and my Redeemer. Let's make sure that our intention to study the Zohar is not only to acquire knowledge, but it's also for the intention of connecting to all the other souls in the planet and to connect to the upper light. As I mentioned before, the book of Zohar is basically a book. It's called the Book of Splendor in English, Zohar. It's a book that is about bringing down the line. It's a book that teaches about the hidden knowledge of how creation works and why are we here and what is the purpose of our life in here, which is basically to try to go back to the state, everyone together, not just individuals, to a state in which we call the state of the Garden of Eden. And we only do that by working together in a group and by connecting together with other people with the same purpose and intention, and in this way acquire what is called the same attributes of the Creator, which is good that does good, and become similar to Him, to the Creator, become givers of the light, givers of this illumination that the whole world needs at this moment. Okay, so we're gonna continue studying the book of Zohar. We talked before about the system, that was put in place for us. That system is basically a system based on parsufins and olamim. Parsufin means characters, personas, right? Or and in this case, when we say characters or persona, we're not meaning that in the sense of humans. We just use the language of branches in order to identify what is in the roots, spiritual roots. And in this system, we have also divisions. We have 4 divisions, which is Atzilut, Bria, Yesir, and Asiya, which is the word of Abiyah. The words of Abiyah are basically olamim. Olamim means occultations, filters of the light. So keep that in mind, because every line that you see here, every parsa that you see here, is basically an occultation of the light. Basically, it's something that will conceal the upper ones, and something that we need to cross. For example, the Machzon, you're gonna hear in Kabbalah talking about crossing the Machzon. We can only cross the Machzon when we reach a critical mass of human beings asking for the same question, request, or doing the same prayer. And in that prayer is a request for the light of Chokmah, for the light of creation. And as we mentioned before in our previous class about this section of the Zohar called Who Created This? EleH. It's a request from the lower ones to the upper one. But then these requests have to be done when Serampin and Malchut are together. Serampin and Malchut basically means those who are really low, which are Malchut, which are us, we are the Nukba, right, or the Malchut, connecting to Serampin, to these vessels of these tools in us. And in that way, when we connect to those intentions, or the vessels with the intention of this tool, that's when we will raise man, or the Ma'in Nukbin, of the feminine waters. And those feminine waters then are gonna reach something called Yeshut. And Yeshut is nothing more than the Yisrael Saba V'Tevunah, or the Zerampi and Malchut of something that is called Bina. And that is gonna be called also Sat Devina. Yeshut is Sat Devina, and Bina, as we mentioned in the previous class, divides itself into 2, into the 3 upper ones, which is Gar Devina, and the 7 lower ones, which is Gar Devina. And then, because that question was raised to Sat Devina, that question is gonna go beyond to a place where there's no question, which is Gar Devina, and from there we're gonna receive the life of Chokmah, which we're gonna see how that happens. Okay, and then we learned that Malchut is called earth, Serampin is called heaven, and Sat Devina is called the ends of heaven, the upper ends of the heaven. Okay, and or in to call it in the firmaments. Okay, so let's read from the beginning, from item 7, to put it into context, and then we're gonna continue with item 8, and then we're gonna explain item 8. In the beginning, Rabbi Eliezer opened off, lift up your eyes on high, and behold, who has created these things. Lift up your eyes to what place? To the place where all eyes are turned. And who is he that has created this thing? He is one who opened those eyes. Who opened those eyes? That's Yeshut. So we're talking about Yeshut here. At encamping, which is Malchut. And you will know this. It is the concealed Atika. Atika Kadisha, which is Keter, where it lies this question. Who has created this? Mi bara EleH. And who is he? Right? Who is he? Meaning who? Me, right? Mem and Yod. He is called from the ends of divine heaven on high, which is Yeshut. On high, as in that is which Bina, since Bina is about Malchut. Okay, so it says Bina because Yeshut is part of Bina. Bina divided into 2, into God or Bina, Sat Devina. Sat Devina is Yeshut, okay? And it says, he is called from the ends of the divine heaven on high, where everything belongs to him as everything is in his domain. And since one can ask about him, though he is concealed and not revealed, he is called who? Me, right? In Hebrew, me. Because beyond him, one may not pose some question. Thus, the end of heaven is called me. So, here is a question or request for the life of Chokmah. That request is raised to Yeshut. And from Yeshut, it goes to a place where there is no question, which is Abi. Okay? And then from Abi, it's going to be a respond. Basically, it's going to be an answer. Okay? So, let's read now item number 8. Say, and there is another below called Ma. What? What is between me and Ma? What is between who and what, right? So what is between me, the word me, and the word Ma? The first one, which is called who, which is me, is concealed. All right. So remember we talked about that Yeshut is considered to be concealed in our encamping, right? And it remains a question. Once man has searched and inquired in order to understand and climb from one level to another, and has finally reached the end level of all of Malchut, is at Ma, which is what? What have you learned? What have you seen? What have you investigated? Since everything is still concealed, just as it was before. So, when we look at the parts of thing that we have here, what we're gonna see is when the question is made by the lower ones. This is called that the lower ones, and when I say lower ones, I'm talking about Zon, Serampi, and Nukba, Mahut. They're in a state what is called Panim Bepanim, face to face. And Mahut is also called Ma, right? Like Serampi. And is considered, Mahut is considered the lower edge of heaven. So we have the upper edge of heaven appear, okay? And that's Yeshut, and the lower edge of heaven is Mahut. And always keep that in mind because that's related to the two Hey, the upper Hey and the lower Hey and the Yod He Vav He. Okay, so you're gonna have Yod He Vav He. So let's say that this name we were gonna put them over here like that. What we're gonna have is that the upper Hey is gonna be the upper edge of heaven, and the lower Hey is gonna be the lower edge of heaven. Okay, that's something to keep in mind. And then of course, Zeramping is heaven. Okay, and Yeshut is gonna be considered the firmament. So it says, man must inquire, see, and research, right? So only a person that, when it says man, it's talking about human being, okay? Not the man that we're talking about, Ma'in being. So whenever I say man, without saying Ma'in being, that means the real man, the human being. So when I say man and then I say the feminine waters, the Ma'in being, the inquire, I'm gonna make sure that I say that so you know the separation between, says, in man and that kind of stuff, or I can, I'll try my best to use the word a human being, okay? But a human being must inquire, see, and research. Only a person or something that is below Zon raise this prayer, this mind of being to Zon, to Zerampin, and they raise this prayer or request higher, because Zon is considered to be corrected by the light of Hasidim, by the light of mercy. and doesn't want to receive the life of Chokmah, and only if his requests come from below, from us, the human beings, okay, will Son ascend to Yeshut and then ask for that light of Chokmah. So now we go like, okay, so you told me in the previous lesson that Son was asking the question. Now you're telling me that it's us that will ask Son and then Son to Yeshut. So now we're adding another character in here. We're adding human beings, souls. So souls are asking for the lights of Chokmah, and they do that through a request to Zon, and then Zon sends that request to the upper one, which is Yeshut, and then from there we can get the light of Chokmah, okay? Then Yeshut proceeds to raise this request to Avi, and Avi raises this request to Aaron Camping. Avi ascends to the rush of Aaron Camping, where there is light of Chokmah, where they make a sivug on this light. A sivug in Avi is called Abba and Ima face to face, or looking at each other, because looking means to receive the life of Chokmah. Remember, the eyes looking. So it's something that I mentioned in the previous lesson, is that whenever you read the book of Zohar, when it says looking, smelling, all that kind of stuff, it's talking about different levels in spirituality. It's not necessarily human actions, okay? So they look at each other, they're face to face, they're receiving the life of Chokmah. So when they hear this prayer, this request, that means, that they are ready to basically involve this light of Chokmah in something called light of mercy, or light of Hasidim. And as a result of Abi ascending to the rush of Aaron Camping, Bina start receiving Chokmah for the sake of giving it, right, to Zon. Then all the Parsufim in this world of Atzilut are corrected by that light of Hasidim, in such a way that they don't want to receive the light of Chokmah for themselves anymore. So they're basically not lacking anymore. Remember what I mentioned in the previous lesson, that when we have, and by the way, this is a het, it's not a hey, so forgive the wrong letter in there. Imagine that this is a hey, okay, a hey just like this one. But basically what I was explaining in the previous lesson was that in the beginning the light enters in the opposite way. Instead of Chaya, which is the light that belongs to Asilut, to enter first, it's Nefesh that enters first. Then Ruach enters first. Then Neshama, and then Chaya. And then when all these lights are aligned with the proper Parsufin or world, that means that that place is fulfilled. So there's no more desire. There's no more. It's already corrected. So there's no more desire to for the light of Chokmah. Okay. So whoever is able to raise this prayer, this request, and basically make Son ascend to Yeshut, and where Yeshut and Abel will ascend to Rosh of our encamping together to receive this light for this person, such a person is what we call in Hebrew a tzaddik, a righteous person. So when we have this tradition in Judaism and in Kabbalah, that the world is basically supported by certain amount of tzaddikim, of righteous people in the world, we mean that these are the people that are doing this request for humanity. We would have this light, we would have received even the wisdom of Kabbalah if it wasn't for these righteous people who raised this prayer, this request for that light for us here down below. Okay. When we do this prayer and we do this request as human beings, this is called raising our soul to that level with a desire for our soul to be filled with that light. Okay, so keep that in mind. This is how we basically participate in this process that the Zohar is explaining to us. How these requests, how this question, right, is basically answered by the upper ones. So then Baal HaSulam started explaining that when a human being corrected desires, they're called basically, these corrected desires are called, souls of the righteous. These souls of the righteous ascend to sun and form basically a man or Ma'inuf being, the feminine water. And this way they make Zon, which is Zerampi and Nukba, right? Zerampi and Nukba ascend to Yeshut, which we explain that. And then the person of Son creates in Yeshut a desire to receive that light of Chokmah. And this compares Yeshut, which is Zadabina, to ascend to Rosh of our encamping, and they're joined with Gardabina, right, with Nikveh Enaim. And in Nikveh Enaim, which is Gardabina, into the pursuit of Abi. So what we see is the following. So Ab Zag is equal to our encamping and Abi. Okay, so when I say Ab Zag, is Ab and Zag is our encamping and Abba Ve'ima. So basically it's raising that request to receive the light that is here all the way down to the lower ones, which is in bond. Okay, and then if you want to know more about these graphics, what it is all about that we're talking here, because you might not understand certain concepts, you can go to www.receivingtheupperlight.com. There you're gonna have beginners, intermediate lessons. For these type of lessons with the Zohar, I would prefer that you start with the intermediate, because the intermediate incorporates some of the basic levels as well, and that way you can understand what we're talking here a little bit more and better, and also will give you a better sense of what we're talking when it says about ascending, descending, kind of stuff. So without this request below, Abi will be fine because they don't need the light of Chokmah, right? They're over there by the head of an encamping. There's no need there. There's no basically lack of Chokmah there, so they don't have the need for it. But then down here we're gonna see that need, and this is when the request is raised, and that is of course because man inquired, right? Meaning man's question signifies the raising of these requests, this ma'inukbin, to make Abi look at each other, make a coupling, a sivuk together, and in that way Ima will receive Chokmah from Abba, and then in this way, man who is elevating this soul, right, will receive the light of Chokmah. The descending light of Chokmah is called the light of knowledge. So it's called, and this is where we're going to introduce some new pseudo sefirah called Daat. So this coupling or unification of Abba Ve'ima, looking at themselves face to face, and the answer to that question is called Daat. It's called knowledge. For Son ascend to Yeshut and Abi, and there stimulates a coupling, a sivuk of the light of Chokmah called Daat. And as it is written, similar to when Adam came and knew his wife, right? So with a sivuk, a coupling. And then when man comes to know, right? So we're talking here about when he says, "A man has searched and inquired in order to understand and climb from one level to another and have finally reached the level of all." This is what we're talking here, right? Man has inquired and came to have knowledge and understanding, right? Means that man has received the life of Chokmah. Means that Zon, that is basically standing at this moment in Avi and compels Avi to receive this life of Chokmah, it's called basically Daat or Sefirah Daat. Very important to understand that it's not considered a Sefirah like all the other Sefirot in the Tree of Life. As the Sefer Yetzirah says, only 10, right? There's no more. However, in order to designate the fact that Son's request for the light of Chokmah is inside the 10 Sefirot of the Parsufim or the Parsuf Avi, we say that Avi have a Sefirah called Daat. In this case means, that instead of having the regular count of Kahab Hagat Nehim, Min Keter Chokmah Bina, Chesed Geburat Tifaret, Netzat, Hod Yesod Amahut. In this case, the Sefirot are considered Chabad Hagat Nehim. Meaning Chokmah, Bina, Daat, Chesed Geburat Tifaret, Netzat, Hod Yesod Amahut. The Sefirah Keter is going to be omitted, as we only mention the Sefirah Daat after Chokmah, Abba, and Bina. Okay, so Chabad. And there's an organization out there, religious organization, Jewish religious organization that calls itself Chabad, because this is, what their goal is, to basically be the people that are raising this prayer, this requests, asking this question, inquire, and trying to get to the point that they can be. The goal basically is for each of these people, each Hasid that belong to Chabad. The goal is for each of them to be a tzaddik, to be a righteous soul that will create this unification of the lower one with the upper one. Okay. So the Sefer Keter is omitted, like I mentioned, and then only that is mentioned, but only after Chokmah Bina. And then when it says, when the person here, where it says, has finally reached the end level for all mankind, he is what? But basically, when let's talk about this part, when it climbs from one level to another level. Okay, so what does that mean? For one degree to another degree, one level to another level, one madriga, level, signifies that passing this or Chokmah, this light of Chokmah, from the Sefirah Daat of the degree of Avi Avaveima to the degree of Seramping, and also the end of all degrees means from Zeramping to Mahub, which is called the end of all degrees. So what we see here is when it says climbing from one level to another and has finally reached the end level of all, which is Mahub, right? So here, which is Mahub. So it's from one level to another, from basically it's the ladder, right? From one level of the upper one all the way down to Mahut. But also we can look at it, as from Mahut all the way to the top one, right? So the person inquires, receives the answer to its question, and also receives an understanding of what's happening over there. When I say over there, is basically, this that is concealed from us, that is considered a mystery for us. When the light is present in the Nukba, she is called Ma. And the light that she passes to the lower one is called 100 blessings. There are several states in Nukba, Mahut in the world of Hatzilut, and we need to know them for all that we receive from this part, that we call Mahut itself. Mahut attained its first big state, a state of Gadlut, when she received the light of Neshama. Okay, so now what we have is this thing going down, right? So when he receives a light on the Shabbat, this occurs when, due to this request, Abi ascends 1 degree from their permanent place in the Rosh of Arin camping, which we're gonna see here. Avi's here, and what happened is you got Arin camping here, which is Attic, which is hidden, right? And they go up 1 degree to the same level of Arin camping, all right? And however, even though Yeshut ascends its permanent place between the sheds, the chaseh, right, and the navel of Arin camping to where Abi used to be, so we have Abi, and then this area here, which is Yeshut, also is rising, is going together with it. Everything actually below also is also going up. Abi used to be between the mouth of the chest of Arin camping. It still remains clothed into the goof of Arin camping, even though it merges into one parsuf with Abi. So Arin camping, if you were to look at it this way, Attic is everything. Arin camping is inside Attic. So inside Attic, everything else it is as well. So Arin camping is inside Attic, and Ava Ve'ima, Serampim, Bria, everything else is inside Arin camping. Okay, so look at it this way. And then also, each parsut basically is a clothing of all the other ones below. Okay, so also Ava Ve'ima enclosed all the other ones. Serampim enclosed everything else. Okay, Mahut enclosed everything until Orwell. Okay, so Yeshu now is in the place of the mouth of the pay to the chaseh of Arin camping from the outside. Yeshut now becomes like the Rosh of Arin camping when it's actually merged with Abi with the Rosh of Arin camping. Yeshut basically ascends from under the parts of Asilut into the chaseh of Arin camping, the chest which is above. So what we have is, make sure we understand this, we're gonna have is the chest. So Yeshu goes up to this level, Abi goes up to this level, and Arin camping goes up another level. So basically, these are the place where they're gonna be. But what you're gonna have is these three, this parsuf basically ascending, as we're gonna see it here. This is the place where they're supposed to be, right? Constantly. And now what they do is they go higher. They go, this is the place, Arin camping is here, Abba Veima here, and now they go higher. Basically, just look at it like this ladder going higher. And this is why Yeshua passes the light Chokmah to Serampin, Serampin then passes it to Mahut, and then Mahut fills itself with what is called 100 blessings. And by ascending to this degree, Mahut becomes like Ima in the spiritual world. So how that can be possible, right? We're talking about Mahut here, Mahut is here, and now becomes like Ima. Because going up 1 degree, Serampin, which is here, is going to be in the place of Ava Ve'ima, and Nukba, which is Mahut, is going to be at the place of Ima, right here. Okay? Now Mahut is similar to me, right? Just as Yeshut was. And this is because now she's in the place of the small state or the Katnu state of Yeshut, from the Chaseh to the Tabur of Arin camping, and stand under the Parsa of the word of Atzilut. And he says that Mahut gain only by gain the light or attains the light of Chokmah only by attaining the or receiving the properties of Ima, for she ascended, to the place of Yeshut, which is called Ima. Then the light that he receives is considered basically Vak or Gadlut, or the state, the first state of adulthood or gadlut. My hut will not receive the Garin Rishonim, the three upper sefirot of gadlut. The second gadlut, the light of Chokmah, which is Chaya. Go back to which is Chaya. This the light of Chokmah, Chaya. As long as she's under the parsa of Atzilut in the Chaseh of our encamping, so she will not receive this light until she goes above. When she goes above, then this whole thing is gonna be considered basically filled with the light of Chaya, Neshama, Ruach, and Nefesh. Okay, so right now it's like it's at that level. Okay, how Mahut is gonna receive this light of Chaya? All right, it's gonna be explained according to the Baal HaSulam in items 11 and 15 in the next article called "Who Created These" by Eliyahu. Okay, so now we're gonna go to item number 9 in the section "Who Created This," and it says, "Of these secrets it is written, what can I take as witness or liken to you, O fair Jerusalem? What can I match with you to console you, O fair maiden Zion? This is because after the temple was destroyed, a voice came forth and said, What shall I take to witness for you, and what shall I liken to you? What shall I liken to you? This means that using what, which is ma, I shall witness about you each and every day since the ancient days. As it is written, I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day, which is what I liken to you. In the very same manner I crowned you with holy crowns and made you ruler over the world, as it is written, in this the city that men call the perfection of beauty. I have called you, Jerusalem, built as a city that is compact together. Then he continues, he said, What shall I equal to you? Just as your situation is here, so it is seemingly above. Just as now the holy nation does not enter below with a sacred arrangement, so I swear to you that I will not enter above until your thrones come to you down below. This is your consolation, that I equate you with this level in every respect. And now you are here. Your breach is great like the sea. And if you say that there is no assistance or remedy for you, then who shall heal you? Namely, that same concealed supernal level, who, which is me, through which everything exists, which is Yeshut, remember, shall heal you and uphold you. So I got Allah here. What we see is ma and me, beside being translated what and who, right? They're basically the names of actions or objects or things, that are happening or are described here in the book of Zohar. And what we're gonna be talking here is about the transgression or the consequences of the sins of Israel, which was the reason for the destruction of the temple. And the destruction of the temple, if you read the Talmud, it says, that it was hatred for no reason. Okay? So now, basically what the Zohar is telling, the only way we can connect, the only way we can be raising our souls to that level, to the level of Yeshut, is by now having love for no reason, right? So he says, Baal HaSulam says, that it was basically the destruction of the temple was a consequence of Israel's transgression. And by using their egoistic reception, they did not want to raise the prayers for the sake of, the prayers were basically egoistical. It was more about position, about titles and things like that, instead of raising man, raising the minute thing, raising these prayers in order to create a sivud, a coupling, or serampin and nukwa, and in this way raising these levels to a level in which they will receive an answer from above, right? So the light fell basically to the impure forces, the forces of Tuma, and these lights, or this light that fell to the impure forces, these forces or desires are called other gods. Okay, Elohim Acherim. There is only one creator. Okay, but other gods means basically idolatry, right? And idolatry has also to do with egoistic nature. The first temple, which is Malchut, ascended to Avaveima, and there he received the light of Haya, right? The ruin is the fall of Malchut to the level of reception of the light of the Gimel Rishonim, the three first levels of the light of Ruach, which is Keter Chov Malina. Okay. Now the second temple is Malchut, Malchut's ascension to Yeshut. Okay, so let's go back here. So Malchut ascended to Avi, right? Malchut ascended to this level. This is when he received, Chaya, remember? Then he fell down, and the second temple is Malchut ascension to Yeshut, and the reception of the light of Neshama, right? In its ruin, Malchut fell to the level of reception of the light of Nefesh. Okay, so basically he lost that light. It fell basically to darkness, right? It has the simplest light, not any, I would say, strong light. So while the other 9 sefirot fall below the parsa, only the sefirah Keter has the light of Nefesh. Such a state is called galut, is called an exile in the spiritual, from the world of Atzilut. And the single sefirah Malchut in the world of Atzilut remain as a point below the sefirah Yesod of Serampin. And this is basically saying that, remember we talk about root and branches. This is the language of Kabbalah. So when there is something happening above, it manifests below. That's why in Kabbalah we say there's nothing we can do here below that will change everything above. We have to change things in the spiritual realm first, and then it will manifest here in the physical realm. And what's happening here is this state of Gadlut is what we are experiencing today, because it is basically what happened after the second temple, and it was because of the vessels of reception within Israel and not raising man properly like it's supposed to be done, like it was described, in order to receive the whole correction of the whole system. So now, instead of having this light filling the system down here, now we have this light basically departing, and only the light of Nefesh, it's what is inside the system. Specifically here, it says the sefirah Keter or Malchut. Then he talks about the other 9 sefirot fall below the parsa. So we have here Malchut, right? And this is the parsa. And what happens is they fall below. When they fall below, only a single sefirah, the single sefirah Malchut in the world of Atzilut remain as a point below the sefirah Yesod of Serampin. Okay, and Serampin is called 6 days, and Malchut is called Shabbat. Yet, is Malchut really bigger than Serampin, as Shabbat is bigger than the weekdays? The words of Bia, including our world, receive the light, receive this life basically from Malchut above. When we say, is this Malchut above? So the 6 weekdays are in a state of zone when Zerampi and Malchut are unconnected to one another. There's no sivuk or coupling. The state of Shabbat is when Zerampin and Nukba join together and make a coupling. And this is when Malchut then receives the light of Zerampin and send it down to the worlds, all the way down to our world over here, the Lam has said. Okay, this is important of celebrating Shabbat, keeping Shabbat, reminding ourselves about the day of rest, right? And then he says, and a voice came forth and said, each and every day my covenant has been in you since the day of fast. Here, the Zohar basically says that the past of days is basically the light of Vak. When I said the light of Vak, remember the light of Vak is basically when it is at that state when you have a nefesh, ruach, and neshama. And then, and when Son receives this, when he's in a state of galut, a state of greatness, and which Nukba received then as Ma, and this light is called the past days. Now, so when it is written, where it says, my covenant each day and every day by heaven and earth, these words of the Torah speak of a coupling of Son, which is called heaven, and a coupling of Nuva, which is called earth. The past day or supernal days constitute Yeshut, and the low days are basically the present days. So what you're gonna see is that when it says heaven and the earth is Serampir and Malchut, right? The past days are Yeshut, and the current day, the present days, all the low days, all these days, basically, all everything down here. He says basically that what the Zohar is telling us that a sivuk of Son needs to be constantly be realized and kept. This is the reason the importance of Shabbat, right? Because otherwise the Creator is warning us that we will disappear from the earth, meaning that the Creator is warning about the 100 blessings that Malchut received, that they should be guarded and constantly, right? So these 100 blessings that Nuva received from Seramping every day in the Sivuk of Ma, between them take place during the ascension of Som to Yeshut, when Seramping becomes like Yesh, Yisrael Saba, and Nuva becomes like the T, the top, Tevunah. And Yeshut stand for Yisrael Saba and Tevunah. Then the light that Nuba received from Zerampi becomes 100 blessings like the light of Tevunah. And then it says, when it says the city that united with her for Nuba is called a city merged with Tevunah. And Nuba became like Tevunah. And Nuba received the light of Tevunah called holy adornments. Okay? And then like a crown of beauty, she surrounds the earth and receives power over the earth. As a result of Israel's transgression, by the rise of impure desires over the pure ones, the temple was ruined and this light disappeared, and Israel is banished from the land, fell to lower degrees. This led to the distances of the Nuba, meaning all the creatures, from Seramping, which is the creator. For the lower 9 sefirah or desires of Nuba fell to the impure forces and became egoistic, right? So they fell down here. And in other words, the 9 pure altruistic desire forces lost their screen and became egoistic, and Nukva herself turned into a point that stands below the sefirah Yeshut of Seramping. And this is what you see in the tree of life, right? That move this down, that you're gonna find Malchut down here, okay? But Malchut down there is gonna be also considered kind of like a Keter, okay? Now everything down here is considered, with less light, no light, and it's where egoistic desires reside. And believe it or not, when we're studying the Zohar, we're studying basically about this here. We know about this because of the actions are done here, okay? So it's very important to understand that. Now let's go to item number 10. I think I have it here, but I'm gonna read it. Item number 10 says me who, all right? Me who sets the boundary of heaven above Yeshut. Okay, so let's go here. Set the boundary of heaven above. So this is above. So Seramping, we talked about this already. Seramping is considered heaven, and then what we're gonna see is that Yeshut is that upper limit of the heaven, and Malchut is gonna be the lower limit of the heaven. So me is gonna be Yeshut, who sets the boundary of heaven above. Ma, what, sets the boundary of the heaven below, which is Seramping, right? And this is what Jacob inherited as his Seramping. So he got Bina here, but basically is gonna be that boundary above, and Malchut is the boundary below, and Jacob is basically this here. He inherits basically all that space between these two places. And he says, in his ramping that shines from end to end. From what end? From this end above and this end below Malchut, right? So this is basically what he inherited. From one boundary, which is me, and the other boundary, which is Ma. For he, Jacob, stands in the middle between Yeshut and Malchut. Hence, it is said, Mi bara EleH. Mi is Yeshut, bara means created, and EleH stands for Seramping, okay, and Malchut. So Mi is basically Yeshut, which is basically the lower 7 of Bina, as we mentioned, Sada Bina, and then the rest, which is Seramping and Malchut, is called EleH, okay. And Bala Hasolam continues, goes deeper into the whole process, but I'm gonna jump a little bit some of his explanation. I'm gonna go to Parsuv Yaakov, which stand from me, Yeshut, to Malchut from end to end. This is referred here to the state of Zon when they ascend to Yeshut, okay, and receive the light of its degree. The entire spiritual distance to us, to the Creator, is divided, as I mentioned before, in 125 invisible degrees, and that can be seen when we look at the way the system is divided into 5: Keter, Chokmah, Bina, Seramping, and Malchut. Those are 5, and inside them they're divided by 5. And each of them also, those 5 that are inside of them, are divided by 5. So when you count all those steps, it's basically a ladder of 125 steps that we need to climb, okay? This is what it's saying here, the 125 invisible degrees. These degrees are going to be different one to another in the magnitude on their screen of man's egoistic desires. And then man received the light of his corrected altruistic desire. So remember that everything has to do, when we introduce the souls of man, we raise a prayer. We raise that request to Seramping, Malchut and Seramping. Malchut and Seramping raise themselves to that level of Yeshut. Yeshut then raised to that level of Abi to the level of encamping, And that's how we're gonna receive a prayer. That's how we're gonna receive an answer to our prayer, okay? And that's exactly what's gonna happen as we study the book of Bereshit through the Zohar, that this ascension of the world continue to happen, and then because of that ascension of the worlds, the going up of the worlds, a soul is born, and that soul is called Adam Harishon, and that's our work right now. We need to emulate that, and now after the breaking of Adam, and try to raise these levels once again, so we can be born again as Adam Harishon, as a new Adam Harishon, right? And be at that level in which we are in the image and similarity to the Creator. And trying to look for anything here that we haven't covered. So what we're gonna see, or we have seen so far, is that Yeshut and Son want to receive the light of Chokmah so they can pass it to the souls of the righteous people who seek correction. In the world of Atzilut, there is a division of two types of vessels, or kalim, which are vessels of bestowal and vessels of reception. Okay, they are separated from each other by something called the parsa of the word absolute, which is this one here. So you're gonna have GE here, and I have down here, okay, because Ava Ve'ima, Vina is divided into Yeshut, which is Sat Vina, and Gar Vina, which is above the parsa. And the lights from Rosh that are encamping it will not pass below the parsa of the word of Asilut. For this reason, Yeshut is permanent in that state, and Son, when they ascend to Yeshut, cannot receive the light of the Rosh of our encamping. This is the reason why we have to desire to receive the light of Chokmah, the upper light, and we call it a question. The question is basically that desire to receive the upper light, the light of Chokmah. Therefore, me, which is Yeshut, or the light of Yeshut, which is also Bara, which is beyond who, beyond EleH, beyond Son, and upon the ascent of Son, or the ascent of Yeshut, Son do not receive the life of Chokmah, as they are outside the Rosh are encamping, outside the life of Chokmah. But with a question, a desire for it, this enables them to continue their ascent. So to explain this, in a simple way, is basically what we're going to do is the following, or spiritual work is the following. We are basically at the level of the EleH has said down here below. Our souls, make a Hebrew, change it to English. Basically, what we need to do is we're down here, right? We need to raise or request to Malchut and Serampin, create an unification in Malchut and Serampin. That unification is done, as it says here in the secret that is revealed to us, the weekdays and the Saturday. Right? Weekdays is Serampin, and the Saturday of Shabbat is Malchut. We can do that physically in what is called the Temple of Time, which is a physical Shabbat in time, but this can be done anytime. When it says weekdays and Shabbat, this is something that can be done anytime when we are connected, when we have the right intention, when we do the right thing in order to raise or request to the upper ones. When we do that, Serampin and Malchut make or make a coupling, as it will basically that will enable them to ascend to Yeshut, which is Saba V'Tevunah. In Saba V'Tevunah, we carry that request to EleH, which themselves are going to also do a coupling. And in this way, we're going to receive the life of Chokmah by their ascension as a response that is called Daat. Okay? So keep that in mind, because that is basically that knowledge, that unification of those two forces to bestow light to us. And that's only through the ascension or for us raising our soul and creating that unification of surrounding Nukba. And then from there, the request is sent to higher levels. And in this way, we ascend together with the worlds, and to the point that we're gonna reach that level as the worlds continue ascending, that level of perfection, which our soul is gonna be back to that level that we were when we were in the world of Atzilut, which is called Gan Eden, or the Garden of Eden. Okay, so that's all for now when it comes to this section of who created this. We're gonna continue with the next section in the next lesson, and it's gonna be called also Who Created This, but it's by Eliyahu. And we're going to talk about almost the same thing, but in a deeper level, as we gonna see the different divisions of each of these level and how all these actually how the whole system actually is gonna work. Okay, so I hope you have enjoyed. I hope you have learned a little bit. I hope you also have kept the Kabbalah, the intention of learning about the Zohar, not only to acquire knowledge, but also for the sake of bringing down the light and unifying every single soul that is in this has been created, basically. And like this section is saying, that you have also the intention of raising your soul to create this unification of the male and female aspects of spirituality, so we can receive the light of Chokmah, or the upper light. Okay, so if you want to know a little more about the things that we're talking here outside from the book of Zohar, but from technical and easier way, so you can understand more about the technicalities that we're talking here, you can go to www.receivingtheupperlight.com, and in there you're gonna find lessons for beginners, lessons for those who are a little more advanced, intermediate, and then you're gonna find all the lessons on each parsha actually is based on the Zohar and the writing. So there is also I recommend that you look for that in that website. Everything's basically their catalog in a way that you don't have to browse YouTube for anything. You go to the website and you can get what you need or what you want to see directly from the website. Okay, so this is all for this lesson. Shalom lekulam. Thank you for getting this lesson, and I'll see you next time.